At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or dsw.com today and let us surprise you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, laughing in the face of motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy. And today we're talking to my friend Jennifer Wallace. Jennifer is the author of the new book, Never Enough, When Achievement Culture Becomes Toxic and What We Can Do About It. Jennifer is an award-winning journalist and a frequent contributor to the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post. Jenny lives in New York City with her husband and their 3 teenagers. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
So you first got the idea for this book because you're a reporter on sort of parenting issues for the Washington Post. I remember reading this article. You reported on 2 studies that had some seriously surprising findings about what kind of youth are at risk in today's society. Tell us about that.
Yes. So in 2019, 2 national policy reports added a new at-risk group to, the children that we traditionally think of as at risk. Children in poverty, children with incarcerated parents, recent immigrants, children living in foster care. And then they added students in what they call high achieving schools. Those are competitive public and private schools all around the country where, most of the children at the school go on to 4-year colleges where these are schools that have AP offerings and rich extracurricular activities. So what researchers were finding is that those kids, those children in those competitive schools were now at risk for 2 to 6 times more likely to suffer from clinical levels of depression, anxiety, and substance abuse disorder than the average American teen. And that, as you mentioned, I have 3 teenagers and they go to one of these competitive schools. And I wanted to find out, 1, how did we get here? And 2, what could I do in my home to buffer against this and be a better buffer?
And I think that as I listen to this, we get it, right? Like, this is the fact that kids in maybe underserved communities or who have an unstable environment that they're trying to function in suffer because of lack of resources. They're having emotional trouble as a result of a tremendous amount of instability, fear, anxiety on one end. And then I'm filling in the gaps that at the other end, this is coming from parental, societal, and everyone has to go to Harvard and take 96 different extracurricular activities to get there. Is that what the picture looks like?
That's exactly right. When researchers look at the top, they call them top environmental factors that can make a kid at risk. You mentioned poverty, there's discrimination, and then there's an excessive pressure to achieve. And that is, the Surgeon General issued a health advisory a few years ago on our youth mental health, naming this excessive pressure, these messages in our environment that tell our students, our children, that they are not good enough, that they're not smart enough, that they're not beautiful enough, not popular enough. And that never enough feeling is causing an excessive pressure that's unrelenting.
That's interesting. So it's not just you have to go to Harvard and get, a 4.75 to get there. It's also you're on Instagram and seeing, everybody looking flawless in their bikinis. And also, so it's not just this issue of high functioning 4-year college education. It's the pressure is wider than that.
Correct. I mean, the population that I studied for this book are kids in the top 25% of household incomes. So that's roughly $130,000 a year, depending on where you live, combined income. So, and the pressures, like you mentioned, some of them are academic, some of them are sports related, some of them are, Instagram likes related, popularity, and just that these messages are eroding their sense of worth. When a child is building an identity in adolescence, they're absorbing these messages that who they are is not enough. And so it's creating this very unstable sense of self, and it makes them vulnerable to anxiety, depression, and substance abuse disorder.
You make this excellent point in the book that not only are there more arenas in which kids feel pressured to achieve, but then the bar in each of those areas is also going up, right? So the bar is higher and there's also more bars. And it isn't just about getting to Harvard, right? Because I think it's very easy, and I've seen it done, and it always rubs me the wrong way, but I've seen it done often. That's like, oh, if parents would just stop pressuring these kids, everybody would be fine. But as Margaret just pointed out, it's wider, and it also starts a lot younger than senior year of high school.
Oh, 1000%. And a big reason why I chose to write this book is because I was so tired of the narrative that this is all about parents wanting status and bumper stickers and, their contingent self-esteem on their kids. What I found in my research is that these pressures are bigger than any one family, any one school, and any one community. That what parents are up against today is so different than the environment that the three of us grew up in the 70s and early 80s. I mean, I could get into that a little bit. Remember in the 70s and early 80s, life was generally more affordable back then. Housing was more affordable. Healthcare was more affordable. Higher education was more affordable. Groceries were more affordable. So parents could be a little bit more relaxed in their parenting because they had a sense that even if a child had setbacks and failures, they would most likely end up okay. Previous generations had at least done as well as their parents, if not better. That was sort of the promise of the American dream. And what we've seen in the last few decades is that an ushering in of extreme inequality, a crush of the middle class, hyper competition, globalization, and the future feels so unknown. We don't know what the majority of jobs will be like when our kids, leave school. And parents are, in the words of researchers, absorbing these macroeconomic forces and becoming social conduits, preparing our kids for this unknown, somewhat scary future. And it comes out in our parenting behaviors. So while I'm not saying we parents, should be let off the hook, what I'm saying is we need to put into context, which we rarely do, that the reason parents are parenting so intensely is because they view fewer safety nets for their kids, that life feels harder. And we are nervous that it's going to be harder for our kids. This is a natural response to these messages in our environment. But what I have found, and why I'm here, I'm sure, and why I wrote the book, is that, we're trying to put this sort of safety vest on our kids so that they can float in a sea of uncertainty and be protected. But really that safety vest that we're doing with our intensive parenting is drowning too many of the kids we're trying to protect.
This is such an anecdotal version of this, but I think that I look at it as in my own family, my grandfather ran a diner and his son went to a community school and became a lawyer and then had 4 kids, and 3 of them went to elite, Ivy schools. And then between us now, there's 9 kids. Like, it feels like a reverse pyramid scheme in a way that, like, the idea of defining success, like the American dream maybe needs to shift somehow because we can't all race to the same mountaintop. There's not enough room, but that the peak has been kind of defined as this very specific thing and there's no more room anymore. Does that make sense?
I think that makes perfect sense. And I would go even a step further, that we know from the research, life at that peak is not necessarily a great life.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I do say that all the time. Like, I've been to the mountaintop and it's not all that, but at the same time, then I hear sometimes privileged parents being like, well, they need to bring back trade schools. It's like, but wait, your kid's not going to trade school. So, like, who are we bringing back the trade schools for? Like, maybe I have a kid who should be thinking about trade school and not running up the mountain. It gets soupy pretty quickly.
Well, I think what we struggle with in the US is that we have come to believe that wealth equals well-being. And so if we're hoping to set our kids up for midlife and later life happiness and success, parents get fixated on this idea that wealth will deliver on well-being, but none of the research actually bears that out. So it's time, like you said, to rewrite our definition or broaden our definition of success. This book is not anti-success. I love achievement. I love succeeding, but I love achievement in more than just my work. I'm like ambitious as a wife. I want to have a good marriage. I'm ambitious as a mother. I want to have a good connection with my kids. I'm ambitious as a friend. I want to have deep, close friendships. I'm ambitious with my hobbies. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not that parents have to not have any ambition for our kids, but actually to be ambitious for more.
We're talking to Jennifer Wallace. Her brand new book is Never Enough, and we'll be right back. Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. And it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING.
Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because, wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack.
Jenny, I wanted to talk to you about something called conditional regard, because the other sort of like knee-jerk reaction is like, well, my kids know this. My kids know that it doesn't matter what grades they get or where they go to school. I don't tell them that. But there's this thing called conditional regard that our kids are great at perceiving way better than we realize. Tell us about that.
So I have yet to meet a parent, either for my book or in my real life, that did not unconditionally love their child. I just have yet to meet that. Unfortunately, as I unpack in the book, our messages, our kids in adolescence are hyper aware to our mixed signals. And so while we definitely feel unconditional love for our kids, the way we sometimes express it with a look of disappointment or whatever, when they don't sort of perform to our expectations, they get this idea that our love, it's read by them as our love is conditional. And I actually I did this survey with a researcher at Baylor of 500 18 to 30-year-olds.
I got to give a whoop whoop because I'm from a Baylor family. So whoop whoop to Baylor.
Whoop, whoop.
Sick 'em Bears.
So he and I wanted to find out from these students, most of them were college students who filled out the survey, what they wish their parents had known when they were in high school. And if they felt that love as unconditional with their parents. I'd love to read you, if it's okay, like 2 things that they said, which to me was very eye-opening as a parent.
Absolutely.
Sure. Love it.
Okay. So more than 70% of the young adults I surveyed reported that they thought their parents valued and appreciated them more when they were successful in school. And more than 50% thought their parents loved them more when they were successful, with 25% of students saying they believed this a lot, the highest degree the survey allowed. So in other words, 1 in 4 of the students in my survey thought that achievement, not who they were as people, was what was most important to their parents. So as parents, we say we love our kids unconditionally. We just want them to be happy. We want them to be caring members of the community. My survey and several other national surveys have found that our kids are not getting that message. The message they are getting is my parents care more about achievement than my character as a person.
I want to double click on this because I think it's very interesting. I think that we unconditionally love our children, but there is no world in which we unconditionally value our children. I mean, value, or we don't unconditionally like our children. We don't unconditionally respond positively to our children. And so I think it's very interesting to acknowledge that like, yeah, when my kid is being a pest and rude and like a stinky, annoying teenager, I unconditionally love him, but certainly I'm not having a great time with it. And I think the missing piece here, which is very illuminating to me, is that also plays in. I had a kid who came in hysterically crying because he failed a test. And I think of myself as pretty laid back about academics, but he was very worried about it. Like there's something that I'm feeding back because I don't unconditionally accept a 72 and a 100. And I don't unconditionally accept him being sent home for pulling the fire alarm and him being sent home with a note that says he's the greatest kid in class. And I think that the taking unconditional love out of it, like what are the things you're conditional about? And are you clear about those things? And, growing up, my mother loved me unconditionally, but when I came home looking thinner, it was better than when I came home looking heavier. And I don't think that she understood those values. So I think this is a very interesting place to really drill down. Like, it's not whether or not you love them, it's what you personally value, because that's coming up in the groundwater and whether or not you acknowledge it or not.
So I agree, except I will put, a highlighter on what I'm about to say, which is our children's value, who they are as people, does not change, whether they come in with an A, lose 10 pounds. So in other words, but what they are hearing is their value is contingent on that performance. So it doesn't mean a parent shouldn't have standards. Absolutely. That's our job, to have standards about how work gets done. Are you putting in your effort? Are you eating in healthy ways? Are you taking care of yourself? So just to give you kind of making the thinking visible, one mother I interviewed, whenever her kid would fail a test or get cut from a team, or a friend would reject them, she'd go into her wallet and grab a bill. Let's say she found a $20 bill in her wallet. She would hold it up and she would say, "Do you want this bill?" And the child would say yes. And she'd say, "Okay, hang on." She would crumple the bill, put it on the floor, dirty it up, dunk it in a glass of water, and then pick up the bill again and say, "Do you still want this?" And the child would say yes. And she said, like this wet, dirty, soggy bill, your worth doesn't change if you get cut from the team, if you fail a quiz. Your worth is your worth, and that does not change. Our kids are not getting that message. Our kids are getting their worth is contingent on fill in the blank.
That makes a lot of sense.
And you make this point about psychologically that we're actually born as humans not knowing what our worth is. That's not an inherent thing. Like, I have value. That's not something you're born knowing. It's something that you learn from your environment and that we're doing. I want to go back though, because part of this, Jenny, is that we're feeling the achievement pressure as parents. And you unpack that excellently in the book too. Like we are also these one-person villages that are feeling all of this pressure and all of this scarcity, which we're being fed, the scarcity mindset. It's not imaginary. We're soaking in it. And then we have to figure this out for ourselves, right? Our own value is not only not contingent. I can be a crumpled bill and it doesn't really matter where my kid goes to college. It also doesn't really matter like what my hair looks like, and that it really starts there before we can be that for our kids.
And just to drill, and scarcity mindset just means, just to define that for people, it means fear that there's not enough to go around. Okay.
Exactly. So life becomes like a zero-sum game. So if somebody gets something, that means you don't get it. So scarcity is, it can be real or imagined. But yes, Amy, I mean, what the work of parenting is also to go into our psychological attics and unpack the messages we were sent by our school, by our peers, by our parents growing up, unpack those so that we can be more intentional about what we communicate with our kids. And it takes work, and we are under a tremendous amount of pressure, and we are, very siloed in our homes, running ourselves ragged, thinking we're the only one, we're the only one. I'm here to tell you, you are not the only one. I mean, I'd love to read you one other thing. So with the help of a Harvard researcher at the Graduate School of Education, I conducted a parenting survey, and we reached 6,500 parents filled out this survey, which was extraordinary, all over the country. And here is the burden that we are feeling. I asked parents on a scale from 1 to 4, how much they agreed or disagreed with this statement. I feel responsible for my children's achievement and success. 75% of parents felt responsible. Now, growing up, I don't think my parents felt responsible if I played well at tennis or where I got into college. They did not feel that pressure. And I think, as we talked about earlier, it's these macroeconomic forces that are pressuring parents. We're sensing fewer safety nets for our kids. And so it's our job to kind of bolster them up and get them as, shiny and pointy and ready for the future. One other thing I would love to say is I asked parents again on that scale from 1 to 4, how much they agreed or disagreed. I wish today's childhood was less stressful for my kids. 87% of parents agreed.
I can't believe there were 13% that said, nah, it's not so bad.
That is the more shocking statistic.
There's one simple thing underlying all of this that's beyond like talk about college less, and it's beyond like start this junior year. It starts with ourselves, it starts with our kids, and it's this very large concept of mattering. And can you tell us just a little bit about like how you found that and how that came to really jump out at you?
Yeah. So in my search for this book, I went looking for the healthy strivers. Who were the kids who were doing well despite the pressures in their environments? I wanted to know what, if anything, they had in common, what their parents focused on at home, or what their behaviors or mindsets or friendships were like. And I found about 14 or 15 things that these healthy achievers had in common. And as I was searching for a framework, I came across mattering. And mattering is an idea that's been around since the 1980s. It was first conceptualized by Morris Rosenberg, who brought us self-esteem. And what he found was kids who enjoyed a healthy level of self-esteem had parents who made them feel like they mattered, that they were important and significant to the family. And, it's been studied since the 1980s straight through today, all different age groups. But what the research finds is that, and what I found in my reporting, is that kids who enjoy this healthy level of mattering, who feel valued by their family, their friends, their community, and importantly, who are depended on to add value back to their families, to their friends, to their communities, those kids were thriving. It didn't mean they didn't have setbacks. It didn't mean they didn't have failures and disappointments, but mattering acted like a protective shield or a buoy that helped lift them up, because those setbacks were not an indictment of their worth. They were just setbacks. The kids who seemed to be doing the worst were the kids that I saw. There were two camps. There were kids whose mattering felt conditional, contingent on their performance. The other group of kids felt very important to their families, but they were never depended on or relied on to add value to anyone other than themselves. And so they lacked social proof that they mattered. They mattered to their parents, but there was no proof that they actually were making a positive impact on the world around them. So you have to sort of have these two elements, feeling valued and being dependent on to add value to really experience mattering.
We are talking to Jennifer Wallace, the author of Never Enough, When Achievement Culture Becomes Toxic, and what we could do about it. And we will be right back.
My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE. Okay, well, we love solutions in part 3, Jenny. And we always like to go to, okay, what are we going to do about this? And what I love about this book is it lays out the problem that we are all living in quite clearly, but there is this framework. There are these clear ways out that are unpredictable in some ways. So I wanted to ask you about this. You say that you've stopped telling your kids, or saying, I just want you to be happy. That's all I care about is that you be happy. You've stopped saying that. Why is that?
I used to solve for my kids' happiness when they were distressed. I would, get to the root of it and try to resolve it with them. And now what I've realized is I want to solve for my kids mattering. I want to know when they're not acting like themselves, when they're off, if they're anxious or down. I want to know, are they not feeling valued by a certain group? Or is no one depending on them to add value? Where's the social proof that they value? And so if I can solve for their mattering, that is sort of the solution to so many problems. It's the solution to loneliness, to anxiety, depression, but it's also a healthy fuel for achievement. Kids, mattering and achievement are not mutually exclusive. Mattering feeds achievement. When you feel like you're making a positive impact on the world, when you have that kind of sense of purpose and meaning, you are more likely to show up in the world in ways that add value to yourselves and to others.
Can you give us an example from your life or the book? Because I think people are saying, I think I get it, but I think that this, like for me, I get it. I was like, oh, okay, values doesn't mean pressure. Is that, figuring it out. Mattering. Like I'm not sure I understand what that looks like in a day-to-day with a child.
So I'll give you an example. So my son spent his freshman year of high school in COVID in his bedroom. and kept in touch with his friends, but we were out of New York City where we normally live. So he was not seeing his friends for like a year. And so when he got to school the next year, he felt, he had friends, but he didn't feel the super connectedness with them. And a few of his peers came up to him and said in the spring, and they said, would you join the baseball team of our school? Because without you, it's the JV team. Without you, we won't be able to play. And baseball is not his thing. He's athletic, but that's not one of his sports. So he came home to me and he said, Mom, what should I do? If I don't play, they literally can't play, but it will interfere with my schoolwork because it'll be 2 or 3 hours that I'm, not doing schoolwork. And before researching this book, I think I would have said to him, you know what? Baseball's not your thing. Why don't you put that energy into your academics? And that would have been the wrong answer. So instead I said, what do you want to do? And he said, I think I want to do it. And I said, okay, go for it. And what that gave him was such a deep sense of mattering he had social proof every single day that without him, that team would not be playing. He was critical to the team. And that fed him. It created this really positive upward spiral that even though he didn't have 2 or 3 hours, a day of the studying, he actually was doing better because he was fueled by this positive energy. So that's just one example of solving for a child's mattering.
That's a good example. That makes sense.
You talk about the micro practices of mattering, that this can start with this, I'm going to start doing this, greeting your children at least once a day, like the dog does. Just like, I'm so happy to see you. Just joy. Just you belong here. Who wouldn't want? I would love for somebody to receive me in my household once a day as happily as the dog does. That's pretty small. And I get it, that can really start to shift things.
Yes. I would say when I asked the leading researcher on this population, what could I do tonight in my house? She said 2 phrases to me, which go towards the greeting like the family dog. And her advice was minimize criticism, prioritize affection. She said, home needs to be a haven from the pressure. Our kids today are getting those messages everywhere that they need to achieve. They need to strive. She said, home needs to be a place to recover. Doesn't mean a parent doesn't have standards. For a kid to matter means that as a parent, you have to say, I'm willing to invest my time and energy in giving you the skills you're going to need for life. So again, I'm not saying don't give your child scaffolding and encourage healthy work habits. I'm just saying don't focus on shiny outcomes and instead focus on how the work gets done. And when she says minimize criticism, there's a difference between criticizing a child for an action and criticizing a child for who they are. And so separating the deed from the doer when it comes to criticizing, that's how we criticize in a healthier way. And then prioritizing affection, Scott Galloway, who, wrote this great little book, The Algebra of Happiness, said that for him, affection was the difference between thinking someone loved me and knowing someone did. So if you just keep those 2 things in mind and minimize criticism, prioritize affection, that will create a real shift towards mattering.
We had somebody on the podcast a long time ago. I wish I remembered who it was, but talking about marriage. And this was so transformative in my marriage. Greet your husband like the dog does. And I mean, I just started a practice maybe 5 years ago of getting out of my seat when my husband got home and going up and giving him a big hug and smiling. And it made he's default very good at that. And I was always like, he's walking in, I'm like, hey, grab that thing and take the garbage. And right away, it's like, okay, good. My other angry worker at the daycare is finally here to relieve me of my shift. And these small things seem small, but they are not small at all. It can really, and I think I was better at it with my kids. Naturally, I do feel like when I see my kids, like my face lights up and it's like, oh my gosh, you're home. I am happy to see them. But I think these small practices sometimes seem small, but they're not small at all.
That's exactly right.
Talk about how your child's mattering actually rests on your own as a parent. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So one of the most surprising findings in the research when I was digging in was that the number one intervention for any child who's struggling is to make sure the primary caregiver, most often the mother, that her well-being, her support system, her mental health is intact, because a child's resilience rests on a caregiver's resilience, and a caregiver's resilience rests fundamentally on his or her relationships. So if we were to think about the most important way to buffer against the pressures our kids are feeling, to buffer against the anxiety and depression, is to make sure that as the first responders to their struggles, that we are sturdy, that we are nurtured, that we have relationships in our lives that make us feel seen, heard, valued, validated. The kind of caregiving that we want to give to our own kids, we require too. And I think, we are sold a bill of goods by the multi-billion-dollar self-care industry that you just need me time, you need bubble baths, you need manicures, buy this, buy that for resilience. But resilience rests on our relationships. So as parents, it wasn't that, I was visiting parents in these communities. They had friends. What they didn't have was the time and the emotional bandwidth to invest in these relationships, in these friendships, so that they could be a source of support when they needed them.
And it's kind of a catch-22 or a downward spiral, right? Like you're chasing the goal, you're neglecting yourself and your own life because you're chasing the goal. And then you're putting pressure on your kids because like, I've given up everything to chase this goal or chase this happy life, or whether it's like travel baseball or just like, I give my all to you. It feels frustratingly like you're going in kind of a downward circle with that relationship.
Absolutely.
Oh, gotta watch that. All right.
Yeah.
I got my notes going on this episode. I'm going to re-listen.
We know what we need to do. Our assignments are extremely clear. Jennifer Wallace's brand new book is Never Enough: When Achievement Culture Becomes Toxic and What We Can Do About It. There is something we can do about it. Jennifer, tell us where our listeners can find all of your work and your new book.
Oh, great. You can head over to my website, jenniferbwallace.com, and the book is sold anywhere you like to buy your books.
We'll put the links to buy the book in the show notes and to jenniferbwallace.com. Jennifer, thank you for talking to us today.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.